Tomorrow marks 1 year since Donald Trump re-entered the White House, and all this week we'll be delving into various aspects of his presidency at this moment.
Tonight, congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins looks at his expansion of presidential power and how it's testing Congress and the system of checks and balances rooted in the Constitution.
The second Trump White House is a blitz of executive actions.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. We're terminating those programs, and they're going to be terminated on a permanent basis.
And use of the military and federal authorities in American cities and abroad.
All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them.
A forceful display of power that often leaves Congress sidelined.
I think it's important to send the message.
And trying to weigh in. Like last week, when these senators met with a minister from Greenland, whose country Trump wants to take over. I asked about their power.
Every day we should be thinking if we are fully asserting our authorities under the Constitution.
Is Congress right now?
No.
Some days, no.
Yeah. Congress has abdicated its power largely. I'd say it's the seventh inning. We're behind 4-3, but the game isn't over.
The big, long picture here, over the 20th century, into these years of Trump, is a loss of congressional power.
Sarah Binder is a professor at George Washington University focused on Congress. She points to how Congress grew and crises like the Great Depression and World Wars, leading to Congress giving more power to past presidents. But now there's another factor.
We're in a world of high, intense partisanship, polarization, which means that the loyalties of members of Congress are quite often more to the president of their party than to their responsibilities as lawmakers.
Add to a Congress driven by party loyalty a president who uses social media to threaten those in Congress who oppose him.
This president thinks he has no need for Congress.
The Constitution starts with Congress. It is Article 1, and it is twice as long as Article 2, which covers the president. Democratic lawmakers especially point this out.
I actually take the view that Congress has Article 1 powers, and the founders intended Congress to be the more powerful branch of government.
We spoke with 71 current members of Congress for this story. The vast majority, members of both parties, bemoaned what they see as a long-term loss of power for Congress. Some see it now as at historic lows. But in our hallway conversations, we heard resignation. Few members felt responsible for or talked of tackling the problem. We asked Republican Ryan Zinke, who served as cabinet secretary in Trump's first term and now is a House member for Montana.
Congress, over the years, has let loose a lot of their power, primarily power of the purse.
But next we asked him about Trump specifically, how he has sent the National Guard to states and cities uninvited, renamed the congressionally established Kennedy Center after himself, and ripped up congressional spending plans, dismantling agencies like USAID. Zinke then defended the president.
Fraud, waste, and abuse is never congressional intent. And the president is within his authority to remove and stop funding of fraud, waste, and abuse.
But he removed entire agencies, USAID, that were established by Congress to be independent.
Well, but also was it in the best interest of the United States, and did it follow and support U.S. policy?
But my question is, Congress hasn't weighed in on that at all.
Well, I would say the president is within his constitutional right to make sure we don't have fraud, waste, and abuse, and taxpayer dollars are spent wisely.
That is broad leeway, which Trump also is getting in Venezuela, with Republican senators last week providing just enough votes to bat down an attempt to limit his powers there.
And the point of order is sustained.
Which brings us back to Greenland and Denmark, where protests about the U.S. are rising and where senators visited this weekend. But it was mostly Democrats, and it's not clear what they will do about the president's threats.
One of the things that's been made clear to us is that the people of Denmark are very anxious, are quite concerned, and the people of Greenland even more so.
Hovering what seems a basic question. Doesn't Trump need congressional approval to act to send a military force to Greenland? I asked House Speaker Mike Johnson this earlier this month. He said maybe, but maybe not.
Under Article 2, as we talked about in the room, the president has broad authority as the commander-in-chief.
But why
as
Greenland?
all previous presidents have.
Democratic Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth, a combat veteran, responded.
I strongly disagree with him. That is absolutely not what the Constitution says. But in fact, it is where Republicans are. They have basically given their powers over to the White House.
President Trump has been running the table on the legislative branch for 2 terms now in a row.
Jamil Jaffer is a law and national security professor at George Mason University and a Republican. He sees Trump as within the norm so far in terms of military action overseas, but he sees unique imbalance in power otherwise.
These are really interesting and perhaps dangerous times. An overly assertive executive without any constraint by Congress, with limited constraints by the court. We've seen how that operates in other countries. We haven't seen that here historically in America.
Republicans are divided on the arc of power.
Look, I think the balance is where it's always been. We have the appropriations process that is a check and balance.
In general, in terms of our balance of powers, it's not very balanced anymore. Mainly because Congress has willingly, over the decades, given up constitutional authority.
While Democrats see them as throwing away power right now.
As it pertains to President Trump, it is unprecedented. There is virtually no pushback whatsoever.
Congress overall recognizes but has yet to reckon with the situation. The first branch in the Constitution is often a second thought in critical decisions for the country and the world. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Lisa Desjardins.
Wait just a second. We have one more thing to share.
We want to say a heartfelt thank you for watching and supporting PBS News.
Without you, we simply wouldn't be able to provide the news and the information that you trust.
So thank you from everybody here at PBS News.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.